welcome to Daily Briefing. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah. July 19th, 2026.
Today, we are tracking a dangerous escalation in the Middle East as the United States launches retaliatory strikes against Iran, plus a critical security flaw threatening millions of WordPress sites. Here in Parker, Colorado, it is currently 64 degrees and clear, heading up to a hot high of 94.
It is looking like a high-stakes day on multiple fronts, so let's get into it.
We begin with the breaking military developments in the Middle East. The United States military has launched a wave of retaliatory airstrikes against Iranian targets. This comes directly after a devastating strike in Jordan that killed 2 American service members and left another missing.
This is a massive escalation, Alex. We have been tracking rising friction for months, but direct military action between Washington and Tehran puts us on a very dangerous path. The Pentagon confirmed the deaths of those 2 service members and said search operations are still active for the third.
The regional dynamics here are incredibly volatile. For a long time, this was a conflict fought through proxies, but these latest strikes represent a direct confrontation. The air war has become highly lethal. In fact, a new report highlights that 16 U.S. service members have now died in this conflict with Iran, reflecting a war that is being fought almost entirely in the skies through drones, missiles, and airstrikes.
That is a sobering statistic. 16 lives lost in what has essentially been a shadow war that is now very much out in the open. When you look at the technology being used, it is a constant battle of air defenses versus precision loitering munitions.
Exactly, and the strategic intensity is only growing. The White House is facing intense domestic pressure to respond decisively, while simultaneously trying to prevent a full-scale regional war. But with American blood spilled on the ground in Jordan, the administration felt it had no choice but to strike back hard at the source.
And the big question now is how Tehran responds. Do they use their regional network to strike back at other U.S. bases, or do we see a direct state-on-state exchange? The margin for error here is practically zero.
It really is. Meanwhile, looking at another major conflict zone, a Russian missile attack on Kyiv has killed 1 person and exposed serious gaps in Ukraine's air defense network.
This attack is particularly concerning because Kyiv was previously thought to have one of the most robust defense umbrellas in the country. The fact that a missile got through and caused casualties shows that the system is being pushed to its absolute limits.
Ukrainian officials are already using this incident to renew their urgent pleas to Western allies for more advanced air defense systems. They are running low on interceptors, and Russia is clearly exploiting those supply shortages.
It is a war of attrition, not just of soldiers, but of high-tech munitions. If Ukraine cannot protect its capital, its civilian infrastructure is going to be completely vulnerable as we move later into the year.
Absolutely. We will keep a close eye on the diplomatic response to both of these conflicts. Let's move over to India now, Sarah, where we're seeing some tragic news out of Nagaland.
Yes, a massive landslide in Nagaland has left at least 4 people dead, and emergency crews are desperately digging through the debris because several more are feared trapped. These heavy rains have made the terrain incredibly unstable, making rescue operations highly dangerous.
It is a devastating situation for those local communities. On the legal front in India, the Supreme Court has made a major ruling on free speech, declaring that the mere use of swear words and vulgar expletives does not legally amount to obscenity.
This is a landmark judgment. The court is essentially drawing a clear line between what is considered crude or offensive language and what actually meets the legal threshold of obscenity under public decency laws. It is a big win for free expression advocates who felt the old laws were too easily weaponized.
Definitely a significant shift. And in Madhya Pradesh, the state cabinet has approved a draft bill for a uniform civil code to present to the state assembly. Interestingly, the draft recommends excluding scheduled tribes from the code.
That exclusion is a crucial detail, Alex. If passed, this code will fundamentally rewrite civil laws on marriage, inheritance, and adoption for the rest of the population, but bypassing tribal groups shows how sensitive these cultural and legal issues are in the region.
Let's talk markets and finance now, Sarah. We have a major regulatory move coming out of Europe. France has officially ordered the country's internet service providers to block access to the decentralized prediction market Polymarket.
This is a huge blow for the platform, but not entirely surprising. French regulators are citing concerns over illegal gambling mechanics, the total lack of self-exclusion tools for problem gamblers, and the fact that French users have been bypassing local financial restrictions to bet on the platform.
Polymarket has seen explosive growth globally, especially with users betting on political outcomes and world events. But European regulators are much stricter when it comes to consumer protection and gambling licenses. By targeting the internet service providers directly, France is trying to cut off the user base at the root.
Right, but because it is a decentralized platform built on blockchain technology, actually enforcing a total ban is incredibly difficult. Users will likely try to use virtual private networks to get around the domain blocks, though French authorities are trying to make that as difficult as possible.
It is going to be a classic cat-and-mouse game between regulators and crypto users. Meanwhile, in the corporate world, the Chinese artificial intelligence startup Moonshot is planning an initial public offering within the next 6 months. This comes right on the heels of a major technical breakthrough in their generative AI models.
6 months is an incredibly aggressive timeline for an initial public offering, especially for an AI startup. But it shows just how intense the investor demand is right now for generative AI technology in China. They want to strike while the market is hot.
They certainly do. Moonshot is trying to position itself as a direct competitor to Western giants. And this funding surge from a public listing could give them the capital they need to scale up their computing power.
Speaking of crypto and advanced technology, let's talk about Bitcoin's looming quantum computing problem. A project called Project 11 has funded a new zero-knowledge proof system designed to help wallets recover funds in a post-quantum world.
This is fascinating. The tool allows users to prove ownership of a wallet using key derivation paths without exposing their vulnerable public keys to quantum signature forgery. But there is a massive catch. It cannot protect Satoshi Nakamoto's estimated 1.1 million coins.
Wow.
So the creator's original stash remains completely vulnerable. Why is that?
Because those early coins are sitting in addresses that do not have the necessary public key history published on the blockchain to generate these specific zero-knowledge proofs. If quantum computers become powerful enough to crack standard cryptography, Satoshi's coins could be sitting ducks for hackers, which would absolutely devastate the market.
That is a terrifying thought for the crypto community. Over 1 million coins just waiting to be seized by whoever builds the first powerful quantum computer.
Exactly. It is a ticking clock. Now, shifting to international trade and currency, the United States is targeting Brazil's non-dollar payment systems with tariffs. The U.S. views the growth of these local networks as a direct threat to the dominance of the dollar.
But here is the irony, Alex. While the U.S. is worried about Brazil moving away from the dollar-pegged stablecoins have quietly taken over the country's crypto market. They now account for roughly 90% of all cryptocurrency transaction volume in Brazil.
It is a fascinating contradiction. The Brazilian government wants to promote its own local digital payment systems, and the U.S. is punishing them for it. Yet the actual users on the ground are voluntarily adopting digital dollars via stablecoins. It shows that the demand for the U.S. dollar is still incredibly strong, even if it is not flowing through traditional banking channels.
It really highlights how stablecoins are acting as a Trojan horse for dollar hegemony in emerging markets, even when local governments try to diversify.
Absolutely. And speaking of scaling transaction volumes, the privacy-focused cryptocurrencies Cash has launched a new full-node client called Zakura. They are aiming to scale private transactions to a massive 50,000 transactions per second.
50,000? That is Visa scale capacity. Historically, privacy coins have struggled with speed because the cryptography required for private transactions is so computationally heavy. If Zakura can actually deliver on those speeds, It changes the game for private digital payments.
It really does, making it viable for everyday global commerce, not just niche transactions. But while some tech is scaling up, other parts of the decentralized finance ecosystem are suffering from massive inefficiencies. A new study by Dune reveals that $1.6 billion in crypto liquidity sat completely idle during the first half of 26.
$1.6 billion just wasting away? That is a massive amount of capital doing absolutely nothing.
It is. The study points to major flaws in automated market maker designs. Basically, liquidity providers are putting their capital into price ranges that the market has completely moved past, leaving their funds stranded outside active trading zones. It shows we still have a long way to go in making decentralized finance truly efficient.
It is a reminder that high yields in crypto often come with the risk of your capital just sitting in a dead pool if you do not actively manage it.
On the tech side, we have some urgent cybersecurity warnings today. A critical remote code execution vulnerability, dubbed WP2 shell, has been discovered in the core of WordPress.
This is a nightmare scenario for website administrators. The flaw affects all bare installations of versions 6.9 and 7.0. And the worst part is, it does not require any active plugins to be exploited. It is right there in the core code.
And the threat has escalated rapidly because public exploits are already circulating online. Hackers can gain complete control of affected servers without needing any authentication. Security experts are urging everyone to patch their systems immediately.
If you run a WordPress site, stop what you are doing and update to the latest patched version right now. This is not one of those vulnerabilities you can afford to ignore for a few weeks.
Not all. And WordPress is not the only software facing a critical security threat. A new flaw in OpenSSL, named HoloByte, has been disclosed. It allows attackers to freeze server memory using tiny 11-byte TLS requests.
Wait, just 11 bytes? That is incredibly small. How does that work?
It is a highly efficient vector for denial-of-service attacks. The vulnerability causes the server to allocate memory that remains locked up until the entire process is restarted. An attacker can send a stream of these tiny requests and completely paralyze a server's memory in seconds.
That is incredibly dangerous because it requires almost no bandwidth or resources from the attacker to knock a major server offline. We are going to need to see rapid patching from enterprise systems to prevent widespread disruption.
Definitely. Now, on a more positive note in the AI space, we are seeing a fascinating shift in how security teams are fighting back against automated attacks. Defenders are now using prompt injection techniques to neutralize malicious commands embedded in content targeting AI hacking agents.
Oh, that is clever. So instead of trying to block the AI hacking agent at the firewall, they are essentially tricking the hacker's own AI with hidden instructions in the target data.
Exactly. It is a new phase of cybersecurity where AI-driven defenses are actively outsmarting automated exploitation attempts. It is AI versus AI in a very literal sense.
I love that. And speaking of advanced AI models, Alibaba has introduced its Qwen 3.8 Max preview model. Along with the release, they have restructured their token pricing plan to make it much more affordable for developers.
This is a smart business move. By lowering the barrier to entry for their latest text, vision, and speech models, Alibaba is trying to capture a massive share of the developer market, especially in Asia. It is going to put a lot of pressure on Western AI labs to lower their prices too.
The competition is just relentless. But let's look up from our screens for a moment, Alex, because astronomers have made an absolutely mind-blowing discovery. For the first time ever, they have detected an atmosphere on an Earth-like planet located within its star's habitable zone. That is incredible. We have found plenty of Earth-sized planets before, but confirming an actual atmosphere in the habitable zone is the holy grail of astrobiology.
It really is. This discovery marks a massive milestone in our search for potentially life-friendly worlds beyond our solar system. We do not know the exact composition of the atmosphere yet, but just knowing it is there changes everything for future space telescope observations.
It makes you wonder what else we will find out about this planet over the next decade. And speaking of life-changing breakthroughs, a newly developed blood test can now predict whether an individual is likely to develop Alzheimer's disease up to 10 years before symptoms even appear.
This could completely revolutionize how we approach dementia. Right now, by the time symptoms show up, significant brain damage has already occurred. If doctors can identify at-risk patients a decade in advance, they can start interventions and clinical trials much earlier, potentially saving cognitive function.
It is a massive ray of hope for millions of families who have watched loved ones suffer from this disease. Early detection is everything.
It truly is. Let's transition to sports and culture now. The world is getting ready for an absolute blockbuster as Spain and Argentina prepare to face off in the World Cup final.
The excitement for this match is off the charts, Alex. And of course, all eyes are on Lionel Messi. This is being billed as his ultimate pursuit of the trophy to cement his legacy once and for all against an incredibly strong Spanish side.
The global viewership for this is expected to break records. Spain has been playing some of the most beautiful, fluid football in the tournament, but you can never count out the sheer determination of Argentina when Messi is on the pitch. It is going to be an unforgettable final.
And we already have the results for the third-place match. England managed to survive a furious late comeback from France to secure third place in an absolute goal fest.
That was a wild game. England looked like they had it completely under control, but France fought back with everything they had. It is a strong finish for England after a tough tournament, and a great spectacle for the fans.
Absolutely. Over in track and field, Britain's Josh Kerr has made history by breaking a 27-year-old world record in the mile run.
To break a record that has stood for nearly 3 decades is just phenomenal. Kerr has established himself as one of the premier middle-distance runners of his generation, and this run solidifies his place in the history books.
The sheer speed and pacing required to pull that off is hard to even comprehend. And finally, in combat sports, Armand Tsarukyan and Colby Covington faced off in a highly anticipated matchup at RAF 11.
The results of this fight are going to have massive implications for the rankings and future title shots in the welterweight division. Covington always brings the drama, but Tsarukyan proved he is a force to be reckoned with.
It was a tense battle from start to finish, and the division is wide open now.
From high-stakes geopolitics to historic athletic achievements, today reminds us of the incredible pace at which our world is moving.
It certainly does. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you back here tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.